guys, it's X. Welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to be discussing different ways to go about finding a clinical preceptor for your nurse practitioner program. I know it is very frustrating. I don't have an 100% way to tell you this is how you're going to get your preceptor, but I can give you a list of different ways and thoughts that you can try. So that is what this video is going to be about. So before you swipe me away or click me out of this video, please like, comment, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you. My first advice is go to a school that will place you. Believe me, the drama is not worth it. I picked my program specifically because of the details of it was just very exact similar to my BSN. It was all online. I personally don't believe in taking out loans for school. I've paid 100% out of pocket, and my program allowed me to pay as I go, stop if I needed. So I felt a lot more comfortable with that. I did not want to be one of those people with horror stories about student loans, student debt, and anything like that. That is just something that's very big to me. I don't like to be in debt. I don't like going to sleep thinking that I owe anybody money. So that is why I chose the program that I chose, and with it came you have to find your own preceptor. We will help you if needed. And I didn't realize how absolutely hard that was going to be. And I originally was an F&P student, which I thought, okay, there's tons of clinics out there that should be easy. And then when I went to acute care, it became even harder because I have to learn how to intubate, place lines, chest tubes, and all that stuff. So the first thing that I am going to show you, and it's probably my most valuable piece of information, is I have to show proof that I called a certain amount of places before my school will help me. I don't think that's the case anymore because there are rules now that claim they have to provide you with a preceptor. However, when I first started, this was not a thing. So I don't know how many of you are still struggling with this. However, I'm going to show you. I created a Google Doc. I don't know how well it's going to show up on the computer, but basically I made a list of hospitals, I made a list of doctors, and I wrote the hospital down, the address, the phone number, who I spoke to in the education department, and then I highlighted whether I left a message. That way I couldn't go back and address the fact, and or what they told me. So whether they told me no or try back in 6 months, like I just wanted my school proof that I tried my best to find a preceptor. I must have called, I believe, 60 different hospitals, and the way I started this whole thing was 2 years ago. When I first started the program, they told me to start as early as possible. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, which some were very helpful. And they basically said start networking early. This is the toughest part, and it is. Nursing school, nurse practitioner school is hard, but finding a preceptor is absolutely ridiculously, unnecessarily stressful. So that was the first thing I did, was I made a Google Doc with all that information on it, constantly calling. I mean, I literally must have broke down and cried a few times, I'm not gonna lie, because it was just so heartbreaking. Second tip I have for you, don't ever get your hopes up when somebody's like, yes, I will train you, because until that paperwork is finalized, you are gonna go through hell. Like, I swear. So first thing I did was watch YouTube videos. How do I find a preceptor? There were people out there who were saying, get copies of your resume, get cookies, dress professionally, and go knocking. That works for, I believe, private practices. If you're an F&P student and you need out in the a place in the clinic or something like that, I believe that will probably work. However, how expensive is it going to be? Do you know how many clinics I have seen in a 25-mile radius? That is going to be a lot of cookies. That is going to be a lot of printed resumes. And another thing that I just noticed doesn't work, and it just exacerbated COVID, made everything so much worse to find a preceptor, because now you can't even go to the place. But basically I gave myself a 25-mile radius. joke because that was the beginning. And then I just was like, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna have to travel wherever to get these numbers and to get these hours down. So if I have to go to Sacramento or near TJ in California, I am willing to do it because it is so difficult to find a preceptor. Funny couple stories was I called Palm Springs. I live in Los Angeles. And this hospital was like, oh my God, why are you calling so far? Like, can't you find anything closer to you? Lady, do you think I'd be calling you if I could find something closer to me? Like, come on now. Like, that is an absolute joke. Yes, like, it would be amazing to go down the street and not have to worry about commuting. But right now, I simply do not have that as an option. So there is places like ENP Network, Nursing Network, where I think you could pay like $120 and they give you a list of places. However, I never paid the $100 because I have to save money. There's a lot of different places out there that charge so much money for these services. So I had to think smart. I've never used the ENP network. I did sign up, but I never paid them to view these places. So I don't know how well or how saturated they are. I don't know how updated they are, but I will link their websites down below. I'm not affiliated with any of these companies that I'm going to list to you. I don't get paid by any of them. So I just want you to know that these are possible places. The next thing is after drop calling and calling all these places and hearing no over and over again, the hardest part also is that they tell you to start early in your program. I would start networking early, like start asking doctors like, hey, that you know of or are friends with, like, hey, are you willing to precept, and just jot their names down. But you can't expect somebody to know what they're going to be doing in 2 years. And that was another difficult thing. Like, hey, I need a preceptor. Oh, well, when we're all booked up. Oh, good, it's for like 2 years. That is like a curse and a blessing, knowing the time frame, because I would call a place. I literally set this place up, one of the preceptor sites that I have now. As soon as I entered the program, I knew this doctor that I loved, and I really wanted to work with him because he was one of my favorite doctors at my previous job. And I called and they were like, well, we are booked for a year. Like, he is so highly sought after. And I'm like, perfect, because I actually don't need him for 2 years. So I set this up a long time ago, but like I said, how do you know what person is going to be available in 2 years? Do you know what you're going to be doing in 2 years? No. So yes, it is a good idea to start early. However, if you don't know how many hours, what you have to be doing, your clinical content, like who your instructor is, it's kind of hard to set that stuff up. So I would definitely your first year start networking and just kind of get a feel for who's willing to train you, who's not, and if the facility that you're at is willing to train you. There have been hospitals that I have called that claim they only take their own employees, and then there are other hospitals that say if you're an employee here, if it's a conflict of interest. So do your research. Another thing I don't want you to do is bank on these companies that will find you a preceptor for pay, because that is exactly what I was banking on. Do I think it's fair that as a nurse practitioner student, I should have to pay for my preceptor? No, not when nursing students, PA students, and med students don't pay specifically for their preceptor. However, I'm glad that those services are out there to help you, because it's either you pay as unfair as it is and get it done, or you don't find anyone, you don't pay anyone, and you are sitting out for God only knows how many semesters. And that was my biggest fear, was not graduating in time. I'm like, how am I going to remember all this stuff for taking my board exam if I'm like 2-3 semesters behind, which I've heard people are, and that's just horrible. Like, I didn't want that to be me. So a couple of companies that I found was like Preceptor Link, I think Preceptor Tree, NP Hub. I literally, after calling all those places, just sat down, broke down, and cried, and wrote to my school and was like, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to graduate because I'm not going to be able to find a preceptor. And they were like, we told you we would help you, like, just submit the paperwork. So I'm very glad I was diligent on writing down who I had spoken to. But I gave up and I was like, you know what? I'll just pay the $12.50 an hour. Like, that's fine. And then when it came down to it, I reached out to one of the companies and they didn't have anybody. And I was like, crap, what am I going to do? All 3 companies that I knew of told me that they didn't have anybody for acute care in California. And I was like, this sucks. So what did I do? In August of last year, I applied to Texas for my nursing license. I sent them my California verification. I was supposed to take a nurse judiciary, I think, exam or something, and then send fingerprints. They never received my certification or confirmation that I'm a nurse here in California. So I was like, what's the point of taking the test and taking my fingerprints if they haven't even gotten that? I've called numerous times to the BRN of Texas, to the BRN of California, and have heard nothing. So that took going to another state off the table. And everybody keeps saying, due to COVID, due to COVID. It's like, I don't want to hear due to COVID anymore. I've been working COVID since March. My life has already been affected by COVID. Like, it is so frustrating. And I know many students go through this. So those are the easiest way that I found my preceptor was asking around. I don't even have a preceptor for May or August. I literally just have January down. But the way I got mine was I asked my school. When I first started my program, I asked my school for a list. Even that was not helpful at first because they gave me a list of facilities. I called several facilities, would not get calls back. Nobody would answer. I would leave multiple voice messages. I almost debated on going there myself, but I was like, I don't want to seem psycho, but like if you need to get something done, you have to get done. I'm very persistent. And that is something that you're going to actually have to do is be persistent, but try not to be a nuisance or annoying. And I literally feel like I borderline harass some of these people because I'm like, I need an answer. Like if your answer is no, just tell me no and I will move on. But please just don't leave me hanging. And that is the most frustrating part about it is waiting to hear a call back. Also, don't get your hopes up. I've had numerous people tell me, yes, I'll train you. And I sent them my paperwork and they never sent it back. And when I asked them like, hey, did you get a chance to look over my paperwork? They'll tell me, yeah, in 1 more week, and then never hear from them again. Don't answer my text messages. I can see you read them, but you didn't respond. So it is very frustrating. And I vow when I become a nurse practitioner, I'm going to work at a facility that will allow me to train people, and I will willingly go out and seek students because this is absolutely ridiculous. We are so short doctors, healthcare professionals right now, and for this to be this difficult is just, it's really saddening. So then the second time that I got that I felt frustrated and was like, I'm not going to be able to find a preceptor, I reached out to my school again. This was about 6 months ago, and I asked them, can you please give me a list of places in California where people have precepted before? This time, instead of giving me a list of just facilities, they gave me a list of names of people that other students have worked with. So I started my Google searches. I started Googling these people. I have used LinkedIn, I've used Facebook, and the way I used Facebook was there are nurse practitioner groups that you can follow. So I believe they're like advanced practice registered nurses, preceptor for nurses, what is it? Nursing, nurse practitioner groups. Like if you just search, or there's specific ones like FNP, or adult gerontology, like each different category has a group on Facebook that you can follow. You can ask there. Have I gotten lucky with that? No. Like I always put out, hi, I'm Christina. I'm in California. I've been a nurse for this amount of time. I need a preceptor for this time and this time. If you know anybody, please let me know. Not one person has ever asked, help me on the website. However, I have seen other people in other states either reach out to them and give them a site or give them a number and be like, hey, I'm willing to precept. So those are another options that you can try. And then finally, how I got mine was once I started Googling those people, I started looking on LinkedIn and sending them messages. Like I said, don't be, it's disheartening, but sometimes you'll send people a message, you see they read it and they don't respond to you. And like, okay, you obviously don't want to precept a simple no, would have been nice, but whatever. So finally, I Googled a doctor who I saw had precepted one of our students before, and I called a number. I did not know it was his personal cell phone number that I found online. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking for Dr. So-and-so. And he's like, this is him. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know this was your personal phone number, but I'm looking for a preceptor. And he said, yeah, I'll precept you. Send me your paperwork. I literally was about to cry on the phone. The first person that I called after all this drama agreed, signed my paperwork, had it filled out, had a little issues with the facility, but I got my preceptor, and I was in shock. Like, I'm like, I owe you everything right now. Like, you have no idea. And he's like, no, it's okay. I'll precept you. And I'm like, no, seriously, you have no idea how hard this has been. And even the place told me, you're very, very lucky to have a site. And I'm like, you don't have to tell me that I'm very lucky to have a site, because I know what I've been through. I know what hundreds of other students have been through. I spoke to somebody on Facebook who called over 300 places. Nothing. Like, literally nothing. So don't get discouraged. Be consistent and persistent. Don't give up. I know how frustrating it can be. I really hope that it's easier for you to find a preceptor nowadays than it is for me. And yeah, those are basically ways that I found a preceptor. I still think that showing up, getting dressed, and like going there with your resume and cookies, whatever, is a great idea. However, just think about how many places you actually have near you that you're gonna, if you have the money to spend. I do think that is a nice gesture. However, when I like did a circle around where I live and did 25 miles away, there was over 60 hospitals, and I didn't even know there was that many hospitals within a 25-mile radius. So good luck to everyone. If you have some amazing tip for me, please leave it down below, because I'm still searching for the rest of the year. Thank you guys. Bye.